don't know. I guess when I first recognized a shift in my own thinking, a woman that I knew was a really good friend of mine. She was very angry one day, and she called me up. She said I was on this website, and somebody put this website up, and she said, why would they want to do something like that? But the website had photographs of all the lynching that had took place in the United States. Women, people burning, just horrible stuff. And she said, what do you think, Dedan? Do you think that was important enough for him? You know, that's not our whole history. We have more to our lives than since we've been in this situation in America. You know, we're bigger than that. And she was saying it shouldn't be up. And she said, won't you take a look at it and tell me your opinion? I said, I'm going to look at it as objectively as I can, and I'll tell you what I think about it. And so there was one particular picture that really struck me. It was this African-American man burning at the stake, and they had a group of people around him, really dressed in nice clothes, and like they had been to church or something that day. And they was just standing around looking at this gory thing. Little children, nice white dresses on. And I sat down and I looked at that picture, and I looked at it and I looked at it and I looked at it a long, long time. And at some point I realized that I was everybody in the picture. That I had a potential within me. Because there was points I looked at that picture and I was filled with rage. And I looked at the children and the people and said I could kill them. And then I realized that I too had the potential to be a perpetrator. And I looked at the victim burning at the stake, and I realized I too was that person. And when I called her back, I told her, I said, you know, the worst thing that ever could happen to anybody is to become the thing that he despises the most. And I have to be honest with myself, is that there's moments that I have the potential to be the lyncher and the one that's lynched. Because that's deep down, I think, in everybody's consciousness, is that we have the potential, depending on what the situation is again, to shift into these behaviors. So everybody became a victim to me in that picture. Yeah. Now, I really had trouble with accepting that observation. It wasn't easy for me to say that or accept. But when I dig for the deepest truth, I have to honor it. And I know that under certain conditions that I would be capable of having that kind of rage to burn another person at the stake. I wouldn't like to think that I would do anything like that. But I know that those little children didn't have a choice. I know those little children were following their parents. I know that that they wasn't innately evil, but something in the social structure said it was okay. And you love your mother, you love your father, you love your grandparents, and they keep telling you stories, and you follow it. And that's why I think it's vitally important, no matter how much you love people and how you inherited what you know in your worldview, is to go back and decide how you want to look at the world yourself.
For people who look like me, who could still be enslaved and sitting in the back of the bus, the Confederate symbol, and you know, the Civil War, and you know, all of that. And how do we heal that? You know, how do I? And so I actually chose to go to the Confederate cemetery in Selma alone, and to take a flower, and I had never ever thought that I would enter that Confederate space, and the flag, even when I see it in California or someplace, it's such a symbol of not you, not wanted, not, but I did feel it was important to cross that divide and go into the cemetery. And I went and I walked and I looked at the tombstones, and what struck me was that I calculated the age of I was trying to figure out where I wanted to lay the flower, and I ended up looking at the ages. When did people live, when did they die? And one of the young men was 17 years old. And people think about slaves, they're not real people. And I, realized that Confederate soldier for me was not a 17-year-old. They were so, I don't know what they were. And so there was something about standing in the presence of and at the foot of a 17-year-old. And it made me think about my relatives who had gone to Vietnam, who had done horrible things to women and men and children, and as a soldier, and that how I and our family had welcomed them back, and I could see that they were both equally guilty and both equally innocent, and so that's where I chose to put the flower, because that was my own breakthrough of the innocence of a child.
This is just the power of the soil, and the wisdom of the soil, and the wisdom of the trees, because it got to be clear to me that how are you going to plant trees along the Underground Railroad? The trees breathe for everybody. So the question about what about the Confederate soldier was not in my consciousness, but here I had selected a symbol that breathed for the whole.